Hello and welcome to the Royal Rumble review. I'm Adam Wilbourn from What Culture, joined by one of the Dudley boys, Michael Hamflett from What Culture, and Andy Murray from What Culture to review everything that happened at the Royal Rumble 2021 pay-per-view. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts where we review Raw, Smackdown, the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on Wrestle Culture. As I said, they're joined by Hamflett and Murray to review the Royal Rumble. Hamflett, what did you think of it?
I thought this was a fabulous pay-per-view. Long-term listeners to our middle of the night ASMR post pay-per-view review podcasts will know we generally have quite a lot of praise for WWE. They don't do a lot wrong on these shows. The wrestling's good because they get to benefit from what the roster are actually good at rather than delivering dreadful 20-minute monologues to each other. And this was the sort of perfect exhibition of that. Their best ever gimmick worked twice, worked well, featuring a ton of their fantastic workers. It was hard to go wrong on this show, but I don't want that to sound like I'm not giving them the praise that they're due for it. But just a really tremendous time.
Andy, two of the favourites heading to WrestleMania, Bianca Belair on the women's side of things, Edge on the men's side of things. Obviously disappointing to not have Daniel Bryan win it, but what do you think of those two winners of the Rumbles?
Yeah, it was Daniel Bryan was my personal pick, and I was like, this makes perfect sense. You know, maybe he's coming to the end of his full-time career. This is a nice moment for him. This is great. This is cool. And I was a little deflated when he got thrown over the top rope with like 6 other dudes left or whatever it was. But by the end of it, I just got so worked by the final spot in the men's match, which we'll talk about, obviously. And it didn't matter by the end. I was off my chair here in the territory at 3:30 in the morning. It was great stuff. Though, I mean, you just look at the response from Bianca Belair, the women's winner, in her promo afterwards. Like, if you have any doubt after that was the right choice, you should probably check your heart, because I don't think it's working anymore. They got everything they needed to right. It was a really good pay-per-view. You know, they've been on a really decent streak with Rumble events in recent years. And, you know, the 2020 men's match, I thought personally was like a top 3 of all time. I thought it was excellent. One of the Rumbles on this pay-per-view lived up to that. And the other one, you know, wasn't far behind. So tremendous triumph all around, and the right winners.
Well, we'll get into them in due course. Let's start on the pre-show. It was the Women's Tag Team Championship match, Charlotte Flair and Asuka versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And we're not talking about any of them, are we, Hamflett? We are talking about Lacey Evans again.
Yeah, a garbage match with a garbage finish focused on a garbage storyline. You kind of have to let 3 of the wrestlers off here. That sounds like I'm being harsh on Asuka. Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, and Charlotte Flair were going to work again. So I think that's probably why. That's the rationale for why this was worked at half speed. The finish was fine, really, because Lacey Evans, with a woman's right with a brass knuckle on it, is going to knock somebody out. And Charlotte Flair's at least smarter than getting rolled up on the, music distraction. So I think it did the functional stuff fine, but it's still a pretty gross story, isn't it? And we have to put up with every single idiot in that company saying things like scuttlebutt or what might be going on. It's full sex. That's what's going on. In grotty hotel rooms between Ric Flair and a woman younger than his daughter, who last year was on a pay-per-view with her daughter when she was fighting Bayley. That's what's going on. They're having sexual intercourse. And in the meantime, like, when she's not inside his robe, he's inside her. There's barely any subtext to it. And in the meantime, we're getting dreadful payoffs to women's matches instead. Like, nothing good to say about this, but I don't terribly hold it against the wrestlers. And, like, generous praise. The belts are better off with Nia and Shayna than they were with Asuka and Charlotte.
Yes.
Yeah. This whole deal sucks. Like, I mean, the answer to this question is Vince McMahon, right? But who is the Ric Flair, Lacey Evans stuff for? I mean, who's sitting there at home watching, can't wait to see what that slimy old man who's 71 years old gets up to with Lacey. It's not for me, it's not for you, it's not for anyone listening to this podcast. It's a horrendous experience. The match itself was kind of nothing, really, until the finish, the distraction, the brass knuckles, the overbooked stuff. I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful that Asuka and Charlotte Flair have lost these women's tag team titles, because now it hopefully, and I'm being dumb here because, the way this company books, but it hopefully frees up Asuka to do something that doesn't marginalize her so much. she's just been such a passenger for this storyline and for the Alexa Bliss stuff recently that, the Raw Women's Division, singles division, feels just nothing at the moment. It's a directionless mess. So hopefully that's the sign we can get back on track on that front. Like Michael said, the tag team titles are a lot better off with Nia and Shayna at the moment. It was a match I will have forgotten about by the time I wake up tomorrow. Well, by the time I wake up in 6 hours. But, as a means to an end for potentially moving people in better directions, I will take it.
Right, let's move on to the first match on the main card. It was Drew McIntyre defending his WWE Championship against Goldberg. 2.5 minutes, no messing about. I mean, we got a spear before the bell even rang, Andy.
Yeah, this ruled. This ruled hard. This was awesome. Like, can you think of possibly a better way this could have gone than the way it went? It was, shades of the fantastic Goldberg-Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania 33, where it was bomb, 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 until one of these big, beefy boys can take no more bombs. Really just, it's what you expect from a Goldberg match, right? It's nothing but finishers non-stop. And they continue and they spike the adrenaline. And they did a really good job, as always with Goldberg, of making you think that this old man, who you really don't like that much, is going to beat the beloved babyface champion. And that's earned because obviously he beat The Fiend in Saudi Arabia last year at a time when so many people were invested in that character. So they played it really, really well. When Bill showed up in a pair of shorts, I was a bit like, the hell is this? Is he going to mail this in? And, when I praised this match, I had a load of people in my Twitter mentions going, the jackhammer isn't very good. Who cares, man? Who cares? This is just
a lot better than the one he gave The Fiend.
Yeah, exactly. And it's certainly a lot better than the one he tried to give The Undertaker, where he almost killed him. It's just popcorn wrestling, isn't it? It's like a B-level Marvel movie. It's just fun. I had a blast for this. 2.5 minutes. Didn't overstay its welcome. The right guy won. What's there to complain about?
And no miscashing, which is even better. Michael Hamflett, what did you think? Drew McIntyre passed the test, in the words of Bill Goldberg.
Well, I'm not sure what test that is, unless it's a bleep one and he just kept running when Bill Goldberg couldn't. But, you passed a test of having a good match with Goldberg. The Fiend does change people, because this jackhammer didn't kill Drew McIntyre like it nearly did Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker did it. So, the law of the Fiend is intact even if he didn't show up at the end of the Royal Rumble. I like this a great deal. Echo Murray's sentiments completely. This could have gone the way of, in terms of Goldberg matches, this could have gone the way of either Braun Strowman or Brock Lesnar. It wasn't going to be a Fiend type of thing. However, what it did have that kind of reminded me of the Fiend match was genuine anxiety. I think I underestimated just how panicked people were. When I saw those fight shots, I just threw out a daft tweet about it, and even then, you could just sense people panicking. Has he got new game here because he's winning the title? There was proper anxiety about Goldberg winning, and I think this match captured just enough of that before it did all the right things. Like, it left quite nice questions you're supposed to have coming out of a match like this, like who was going to be next for Drew, because he's so comprehensively beaten Goldberg. But Goldberg could work at WrestleMania, so who do you fancy for Goldberg at WrestleMania? Because he's shown that he can still have one of these kind of explosion matches. Drew said that fighting Goldberg would be like fighting his dad. Let's make this an intergenerational thing. Is Goldberg's son ring ready yet? Put him against Drew's dad, or put them all in a mixed tag and I'll watch it again. I just thought this left you with all the right takeaways you want to have from when you plot this match on paper, and it could have gone in the total opposite direction. So it forgotten by the end of the night, but a quiet triumph, I think.
And particularly enjoyed Drew McIntyre just kicking Goldberg square in the face at one point in the midst of numerous claymores, of course. But yeah, like you say, I think as with a few things on this pay-per-view, just the right decision. Sometimes we're so blown out of it by WWE that them just doing the right decision and plotting the points that we anticipate that they should do, you're sort of kind of thrown off by it all. But yeah, completely correct. And Drew McIntyre retaining the WWE Championship, starting off the pay-per-view properly on the right chord. And that was followed by Sasha Banks versus Carmelo for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Hamflett, I think we all anticipated Sasha was going to retain here. What did you make of the way that she did it?
Good. Not on the level of the TLC match, which was a little mini banger, I think, that nobody saw coming, but certainly indicative of Carmella's overall growth and improvement. She was kind of underrated for a while, and I think she's reaching a level now where she's getting the praise she probably deserves as being able to hang with like the top tier of the women's division. Sasha Banks, incredible again. I'm starting to wonder if that's maybe why people are often so high on SmackDown. It's maybe not even because of Roman Reigns, it's because of what Sasha Banks does. The more I think about it, the more I think the SmackDown Women's title is maybe the most valuable title in WWE at the moment. If you think about off the back of Bayley's last run, the feud they had, and Sasha's current just tremendous consistency and work rate and all those like really important words that you need to associate with a champion, Sasha's got them in spades. And when you assume where the Royal Rumble winner is going, it feels like a match that could main event night 1 of WrestleMania. Like night 2, it won't, because they're just not ready to go there yet. Again, with women, it would seem, but it feels like Sasha's so good that it feels like you've got a headliner there in the form of that SmackDown Women's title match. This was everything it needed to be. And again, if nothing, and like obviously Carmelo's dive was insane, but if nothing else, it was like a kind of victory for sound booking. This feud needed this payoff, and it got it.
Yeah, this was exactly that. It was a good, solid match between maybe the best wrestler in the company over the past 12 months, maybe even longer, and one of the most improved wrestlers over the past 3 or 4 years. When this match kind of finished, I saw a lot of takes that were like, oh, Sasha's proven that she can, elevate anyone to a good match. But I mean, you've got to acknowledge the improvement in Carmella. You really do. If you don't, I think you're not really doing any of this any justice. She's evolved from someone who, when she came on the scene in NXT, was not particularly good at anything really, aside from the Code of Silence, which was just a really cool finisher. And she came on the main roster and she had a bunch of awkward moments, and then she won the Money in the Bank, and everyone was like, what the hell is this? Obviously, the nature of that finish contributed towards that. But she's a great example of someone who's coming with either no or very limited in experience levels, and worked up to meet the working standard in this company, which in the women's division is very high. It's a good match. Not an outstanding match, not as good as the TLC match. I thought the stuff with Reginald, I can do without those kind of extra little booking bells and whistles. But it's WWE; they're going to do things like that. The right result, the right match, no complaints.
Like Reginald being ejected from ringside for what I saw as saving Sasha Banks from injury and then eating Hurricane Rana.
Existing. That's why he got thrown out. Like, sorry, pal. Breathe somewhere else. I love that guy, though. That lucha thing we did a few weeks ago was tremendous. So no disrespect to Reggie. Just come on.
Right, let's get on to the Women's Royal Rumble match. Started out by number 1, Bayley, and number 2, Naomi. Bianca Belair, I still can't get over this, winning from number 3. The past 2 years, Bianca Belair has just shown that it just makes it look so easy. Like, what was it, 56 minutes she was in this match, and she still looked as fresh as a daisy at the end of it all. Murray, I know you were a huge fan of this whole Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, this was a phenomenal Royal Rumble from start to finish. I'll just get the stuff I didn't like out of the way straight away. The 24/7 title stuff, I have no use for that. Just stick it in the bin. Put that in the men's match. Who cares? Put that over there. No one wants that. I'm joking. But that's literally the only thing I disliked about the whole thing. I thought that, when you start off and you've got Bayley, awesome, obviously one of the best wrestlers in the company. Naomi comes back. Fantastic. Not seen her in ages. And she had that awesome run last year that attracted attention way outside of wrestling that they just didn't capitalize on. And I thought it was nice here that she got 40 minutes or whatever it was, had a really strong run. Bianca obviously entering at number 3, winning the whole damn thing, 56 minutes, all that great stuff. The returns were fun. Jillian Billy, that was a blast, man. I know it's Jillian Hall, she's a gimmick and all this stuff, but they utilized the gimmick really well. Victoria, who the hell thought we'd see Victoria? She's one of these old legends who, you think about people who could come back, and in this match it was Melina because she's back or coming back. It was Eva Marie because she's back under contract, or you think Lita or Trish. No one thought of Victoria, which is crazy because she's outstanding. So it was really nice to see her. As usual, as they've made a habit of doing, particularly in the past few years, they did a great job of generating anxiety with the person you don't want to see win. Charlotte Flair in this case. She won last year. It was hideously unpopular. Everyone wanted Shayna to win, understandably so. This year, the way they kind of built that closing stretch between her Bianca and Rhea was extremely well done. Ripley and Belair teaming up to get Charlotte out, and they have the gentlewoman's agreement on the apron when they're on the outside. And that little closing stretch there, I would have been quite happy with either of them winning in that moment. But when Bianca won and she had the emotion and the promo and she's breaking down and barely able to hold it, no doubt in my mind that was absolutely the right choice. Rhea looked like $1 million as well. I loved the spot with Bianca's hair and Naomi's non-elimination. It's just a really, really great Royal Rumble match. I'm not sure I would put it on the pantheon of 1992 and 2001 and last year's men's match, but it's not far off. This was sensational. There were mini stories, matches within matches all over the place. The surprises were cool. So many people came out of this with a renewed sense of purpose. How do you make it better? Apart from got to shout out the pop of the night as well. Alexa Bliss comes down. It's a big moment. We're going to get some Fiend stuff. Rhea Ripley, she says no. Takes her head off, throws her out straight away. Just when I thought the match was going to get derailed by pantomime, spooky fireball, goblin monster truck stuff. No, out you get. We're going to have a proper Royal Rumble, a proper match, and a proper winner. You go away. Do that on Raw. No one wants this. It was a great match. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought like the first 10 entrants were just so well organized in terms of, like, say, Bayley, Naomi, then the eventual winner, of course, Bianca Belair and her history with Bayley. Billy Bloody Kay, just a star of this, constantly trying to advertise herself to every single person who came out. Shayna Baszler said no. Toni Storm just looked at her. Shotzi Blackheart fired stuff from her bloody tank at her. Outrageous. And then Jilly and Billy that we get. I will never, ever, ever forgive the Riot Squad for what they did in that match, including ruining the reunion of the Iconics, Michael Hamflett. But like you say, we got Victoria in there. We got a lot of NXT stars alongside Rhea Ripley, Santana Garrett, Toni Storm, Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon, Dakota Kai. We got Alicia Fox, of course. We got Tori Wilson. Fantastic to see her. And I know this is the first point you'd want me to throw to you on, Michael Hamflett. Lana got her revenge on Nia Jax.
Yeah, she did so, didn't she? Maybe I'll do what Murray did and like go over the stuff that wasn't so great before I heap loads of praise on it, because that was really, really weird. Yes, she low-bridged Nia Jax. I wouldn't say pulling down the top rope quite makes up for going through a table 9 times. And the fact that her and Natalya went to the trouble of getting tag gear made only for Natalya to immediately turn on her and Lana's redemption to be ruined within about 10 seconds was so weird. The company despises this woman and enjoys showing that off. It's not on. Other than a couple of like wonky bits there and a little bit of dodgy work here and there, I can't really find fault with this Rumble. There's been 30 odd years of Royal Rumbles, and not to undermine the work that went into this one, but it's such a brilliant gimmick because you can just do them really well or do them really poorly. There shouldn't really be an in-between. You should just have years where things click, as this one did here, by the inclusion of some tremendous wrestlers in the key spots. So your Bayley's, Naomi's, and Bianca Belair's early, your bigger stars, as Murray pointed out, like Charlotte there to play spoiler, and it doesn't necessarily have to be her, but she was perfectly cast for that as well. And what that earns you by the end is a scintillating atmosphere, which it genuinely felt like they generated. That will always be my takeaway from this Royal Rumble. Amidst a ton of things that I loved about it, I'll remember the Final 4, Final 3, Final 2 sequence as if it was in a building rather than the Thunderdome. I genuinely forgot I was watching this Zoom call show. I forgot that the noise was cheer.wav. I was buzzing. I was electrified by the response. I had all the memories of Brett and Lex and Cena and Batista, where you have 2 nailed-on winners and you can't pick. And we've debated this between ourselves on podcasts and with other fans and people on Twitter. Like, you really couldn't. It had to come down to those 2 to generate that level of like frantic energy at the end. And I thought they played with that masterfully, considering they don't have a live crowd to work off, The inclusion of the legends, it's one of the best jobs they've done of this in any Royal Rumble ever, I think. The 2018 women's one was more like a celebration of women's wrestling. So the legendary figures that came in there were more there as like legacy players. It was like, this is nice that they're getting to share in the moment that they helped build. And then in 2019 and 2020, I think it was like you had a Molly Holly here and there, but like it was scaled back a little bit. This year, you sort of had the perfect mix of both. As Murray identified, it was people that maybe you don't see all the time, but then they were woven brilliantly into storylines. That Iconics nearly reunion, not only did they hold back on actually giving you it, and when I say you, I actually do mean you this time, Wilbourn. They didn't give you it, but it was also around Peyton Royce stealing the Widow's Peak. And Victoria having to say, hang on a goddamn second, who do you think you are doing that right in front of me? I've just come back. That shows me that they've put thought into the details. And if they've done it on a little comedy spot like that, it's evident just how much they've done it throughout the rest of the match as well. Again, it's not to undermine how hard these things are to put together, but they're set up to be brilliant. All you have to do is just add the correct ingredients. And this year, they just got this one so right.
And just a quick word on runner-up Rhea Ripley. I thought she looked great in this match, as Andy mentioned, that elimination of Alexa Bliss included. But like 7 eliminations, I believe. And this struck me, and I don't know whether it's because I also enjoyed the winner this year, but this struck me as very different to Shayna Baszler, for example, last year, who it felt like just a stumble at the final hurdle for that. And then obviously they gave her the dominant Elimination Chamber victory to sort of reestablish herself. It strikes me that people who are saying, oh, maybe you give that to Rhea Ripley this year. I think you could have Rhea Ripley just squash jobbers for a bit. And then if Charlotte Flair comes out and says, I'm world champion after beating Asuka, who's going to challenge me for WrestleMania? Rhea Ripley can come off the back of a performance like that and waltz straight into a world title match at WrestleMania.
I think like we'll touch on this a little bit in the main event as well, but positive energy around your winner and the product and this match goes a long way with a situation like Rhea Ripley. If Charlotte Flair had won, or if the match had been dire, I think we'd be sitting here thinking, oh my God, here comes another terrible year for Rhea Ripley. It's going to be another failed pursuit of a title, another situation where she's cast like a bit of a loser instead of this demographic goblin winner that she was this time last year. I think we're also high on Bianca Belair's victory and a quality, well-booked Rumble, that this is the moment where you are feeling optimistic. I've got my concerns. I genuinely have my concerns of how she'll swim with the Sharks on Monday Night Raw, which is, I assume, where she's going. But this was like a decent first step. Like, this was better for her than the majority of what she did in NXT last year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that on every single level. I think that the worrying thing for me coming out of this is that the most obvious feud for them to go to for Rhea Ripley, if she does end up on Raw now, is Alexa Bliss. And you then end up in a situation where you're going to have this. Rhea Ripley's a badass. That's her personality. She's this big give no Fs. When she got right up in Shayna Baszler's face for the first time in NXT and said, you haven't beaten me, word. That's what her character's all about. It's not sobbing on the locker room floor after she loses to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. If they have her sell fear Alexa Bliss's wacky shenanigans, I think every good bit of work they did in this Royal Rumble and then some will be undone. If I had the pencil, if I was Bruce Pritchard, I would honestly have her squash Alexa Bliss in a minute on Raw. The same as she did in this match. Skips down, all happy-go-lucky, going to do the transformation, finish her dead. That's what they should do to get her up to the next level. I worry greatly about throwing her into that mix with that specific character. But we'll see. I feel good about her coming out of the match. I thought this was a great first step. The follow-up, as always, is the most important thing. So we'll see what happens on Raw tonight.
And massive congratulations yet again to Bianca Belair. Just sensational. Right, let's move on. Talk about the Universal Championship match, Andy. Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. 25 minutes where they just did some mad stuff. And you just couldn't help but feel it was let down by that handcuff spot at the finish. I really enjoyed the mad stuff, the jumping off forklifts, the throwing each other off a platform even higher than the previous platform they'd thrown each other off of. And then just that little stumble really sort of took the air out of everything, didn't it? Yeah,
I mean, okay, so like full disclaimer, this was never going to be a match for me ever in a million years because I find the last man standing stipulation is very difficult. It saps drama out of matches for me, especially as you have in this one, where they had like 2 counts within the first 3 minutes or something. It's a lot of waiting around. It's a lot of, really sapping the momentum away from certain spots. And The Roman Reigns talking brawls, I find them a bit too on the nose and a bit too, here is the story, you stupid goldfish idiot. Understand this. But I think the workers, Reigns and Owens, did a tremendous job of compensating for that by being mental. Kevin Owens taking 2 ridiculous back bumps off very high places. They worked with ridiculous intensity throughout. They were hitting finishers in the first minute like it was a Goldberg match. It was nuts. So, I think it's more of a problem of agenting personally for me rather than the performances. These guys worked their ass off, and Kevin Owens, once again, how many people suffer for their art in modern day WWE like him? This guy, every couple of months, he does something that should break his back. Because he's that dedicated to his craft and he's that selfless. The finish is a real shame for them for how hard they worked. And this was a well-received match on Twitter. And, that's how I'm gauging my reaction at the moment because I haven't been anywhere else. People seem to be really into this until that point. So it sucks for people who are super absorbed into this storyline and like the talk and brawls and don't mind, aren't a baby like I am about last man standing finishes. All that faff with the handcuffs and the referee standing about like a dope happened. But it is what it is. Stuff like that doesn't bother me too much at the end. It's a weird finish. I think when you have these big, huge, crazy bumps and hitting him with the bloody golf cart like he's Sammy Guevara or something. when you have these spots and you finish on like a choke, a submission, it's kind of like you've gone from a 9 level of intensity to like a 4. And that's kind of lame. But I can't fault the performers. They worked super hard. They took crazy risks and did things that hurt like hell for my entertainment. Subjectively, it's not for me, but I'm willing to call it a success in the grander scheme.
Yeah, I don't feel quite as kind to this one. I'll be honest, I was really bored until I was absolutely howling laughter at a spot that should have been the finish because nothing else was going to top it. That golf cart and the way they shot it was absolutely amazing. I was seeing myself laughing. It was part like horrific violence, part jackass.
Yeah.
And I just thought nothing I will see in this match will be as entertaining as that or will feel as violent as that. And it didn't matter how high Kevin Owens got up in the air or the bump through the LED screens or things like that. Totally agree with Murray on the finish. I think we talked about this in another podcast. This was a weapons version of one of those mid-2000s Ring of Honor matches where the guys absolutely murder each other on the necks and heads and then the guy wins with a roll-up. Hang on, or wins with a crap finisher. Like, how are we not just beating with the Emerald Frozen 6 seconds ago and now you're like doing a choke slam and it's supposed to be hard. This was the weapons equivalent of that. They peaked. Yeah, again, your taste may vary on what spot it was for you, but the choke wasn't it. And it was badly affected by the botch, I guess, with the timing of how long it took to get it. It did kill the momentum, and I guess there was nothing they could do with it. It was undone by the problem that existed in the booking all along, and it was a match too far. Kevin Owens cut such a wonderful promo on SmackDown, but the big difference between excellent delivery and an excellent promo is, can it really sell you on the questions that the fight is supposed to be asking, which is, can Kevin Owens beat Roman Reigns? I don't think it sold anybody on that. Kevin Owens' delivery was fantastic, but nobody came away from SmackDown thinking that he could win the title. And thus, every bump and every moment of this match came with is this going to be the one that puts Owens away? It never came with Owens might actually get it done here. If anything, I would say I would give him the benefit of the doubt on the handcuff spot itself. But like where Roman pulled the referee in to knock him out, but that was lost to the botch. So I think the one time they were on the verge of capturing that suspension of disbelief that Owens was going to get it done, it won't be remembered. And it was blown by the aftermath, which is a bit of a shame for them, because I will watch that golf cart bump about 300 times this week. I know myself and I will.
Right, let's conclude by talking about the men's Royal Rumble match then. Now, we already knew off the back of WWE Backstage that 1 and 2 were going to be Edge and Randy Orton. And, they picked up where they left off, didn't they, Hamflett?
Yeah, which is probably for the best, because about a minute and a half into their brawling, I started feeling I was about 35 minutes into their WrestleMania match. I was like, I'm glad this is going to be confined to the Rumble and we're probably never going to get another singles match, at least in the near future, between these two. this is the exact right destination to get for WWE, effectively, to get all their Edge and Randy Orton out of their system. Like, you just want to believe, especially with Edge winning, that they've done it now and they've cracked that, and we can all just move on from that sorry bloody affair. And it was violent enough. It meant that we didn't have to endure. Well, we got at least the majority of the match thinking, oh God, when's our Fiend Randy Orton stuff coming? Whereas if Orton had been in the match the whole time, I think that would have been a cloud over the Rumble itself. We'd have been thinking, oh, when's the Fiend going to rock up for Randy? As it was, we had barely a split second to contemplate it before Edge was chucking him out the ring, and then the moment had passed. So I think that was ideal for the success of this match. Whether or not that's on purpose or not, because that would imply that WWE are acknowledging that this character is a catastrophic failure, and I don't think they think that. I think we'll get more on Raw. They'll get back to the silliness, but I was so pleased it had nothing to do with this Royal Rumble. It was more uneven than the women's match. Overall, it was badly lacking any stories. There was nowhere near enough in the way of like the Royal Rumble mini stories or little things that built to other things. It had some poppers. Christian's return was great. Like Damian Priest's little run was kind of meaningless because he just like threw out some guys and then he got eliminated himself, and you're not really left to remember those eliminations. Nakamura was like this great babyface hope for a section of the audience, and Baron Corbin just came and like done with that. You know, there was like a lot of that sort of stuff going on. That kind of, I referred to it on like the Smackdown dole queue of mid-carders keeping their fingers crossed that they might be the ones to get to point to the sign. None of them, and I would even maybe include Daniel Bryan in this, none of them felt like winners within the body of the match, and then they were subsequently tossed. And I think that's where this one was dragged down slightly. But again, like so much of it is defined by the winner and by your feelings on the close and stretch. And Christian's return was wonderful. Edge, this is the last of Edge's grit I want to see for a while. I need some patter from Edge now. I want him to find his smile in his feud with whichever title he goes for. But this was the right application of Edge's grit, to go end to end, to make a bit of history, to win his second Rumble, to like get the redemption from everything that went wrong from last year. That's nice stuff. That's big picture storytelling stuff that this company doesn't really do. It doesn't often make you feel nice things about wrestlers that you like. Edge is a guy, put it like this, right? If you swap out Edge with John Cena, are people going to be as high on how this Rumble plays out? Probably not. He's a guy, Edge, currently that commands an awful lot of sympathy from the majority of the audience, has a great deal of stock still in the bank in spite of that pretty lousy thing with Orton last year. So this felt like a really good, warm reset for a character that people are wanting to see more of. And too often, WWE don't pick the right guy for that. Bryan would have been the other one, but I think they picked, if Edge wasn't everybody's first best, I think they picked everybody's second best.
They did talk about Bryan's elimination. I think they placed it quite well. You know, that we always look back on when they tried to eliminate Bryan to get people to forget about him being eliminated and get behind Roman Reigns. I thought it landed quite well here, that you didn't have long enough to dwell on it. Me and Phil were doing the live stream. We were like, right, okay, well, we've got what? Seth or Braun or Edge? Like, that's about it, really. And then there's the elephant in the room, or not in the room, and as the case may be, as it was with Randy Orton. Quickly, Hamflett, before I get your thoughts, Andy, did you buy the whole Orton thing, or was you just waiting for the inevitable?
I didn't buy it, but I'm not going to use that as a criticism against Pro wrestling's not real. Like, I wanted to see a story told of the when and how of Randy Orton comes back, not that I was being goddamn worked by a fake injury. That's spot entertainment.
I thought, I was just sat there rolling our eyes on the stream going, if he was injured, they wouldn't be like, and here's him walking past this bit, and here's them walking past we're going into the back now, and here's them cutting a knee pad off or whatever. Speaking of people you said about looking like winners in this match, I'll tell you who did look like a winner, and he came nowhere near the finish. And that was Big E. The moment with Big E where Xavier Woods had been eliminated by Mustafa Ali, and Big E just looked at him and like grabbed him by the face, basically. I thought he looked great there. And one of the MVPs of this match is a man not in this match, and that would be Big George, a.k.a. Omos, who eliminated Big E, which was simultaneously shocking and disheartening, but also quite clever. And I liked the stuff that we all sort of pitched in the build-up of him just constantly playing, defense and just catching AJ Styles and popping him back on the apron so he could continue the match. I thought Priest looked good up until his elimination by Bobby Lashley. I have to say, I adored Bobby Lashley's elimination of Dominic Mysterio, which is me going back to an old favorite of mine. I think it's a little weakness of mine. The Hurricane, always going to give a nod to friend of the channel, Hurricane, attempting to chokeslam Big E and Bobby Lashley with some great energy. And then, as you say, Christian in there returning. And I want to give a nod as well to, I think I was obviously busy with the stream, but I saw a tweet from Adam Nicholas that just said, "What's in those apples?" when Carlito came out looking the way that he did. And then, we got down to the sort of final 4 or 5, I suppose. You had Seth. Obviously, great to see him come back. I think it's been, certainly for me, it's been sufficient time that I miss him. I just don't need him to be as much of the character as he was when he left. And fixated on taking people's eyes out and what have you. Really enjoyed that. Obviously, you had Seth, Braun in there, who had been teased off the back of SmackDown. You had Edge and Christian. Lovely moment with those two, of course, in the match. And then Randy Orton. And Andy, talk me through your feelings as we went through the match and the finish, of course.
Yeah, well, it definitely had a lot more lulls and excitement and electricity compared to the women's match. It started off well. I got a lot out of the Orton and Edge stuff in the beginning, and then Sammy coming in as a cheeky little scamp. But the thing, if you watched a minute of pro wrestling in your life, you knew Orton was coming back and stuff. But I found that when he did come back, it was really effectively done.
Yeah.
That as soon as he hit the RKO, I was like, well, he's won then. He's won then, hasn't he? I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be so upset about it. I'm going to tweet passive aggressively. It's going to be horrendous. And then Edge just threw him out. So it was tremendous. I got worked by that little moment rather than the overall story. And by the end of that, although I wanted Daniel Bryan or Big E to win heading into the match, when Edge won, I was like, okay, you've made the right choice here. You've done this really well. I think Hamflett mentioned a good point there where there weren't a lot of people in this match who had the kind of run where you felt, okay, you're a winner, you can win this. Even Bryan, to a certain extent, when he came in, I was deflated when he went out because I was like, oh man, that sucks. I would have loved to have seen him win, but there wasn't much about his performance or the way he was positioned within that match that made you go, hell yeah, Bryan, let's go. He was just kind of existed in the match. And, I thought this was a good match overall, don't get me wrong. It was a good Royal Rumble. But there were a lot of really great wrestlers in this match. Loads of, phenomenal world-class talent. But very few of them leapt off the page. Big E certainly did, as you mentioned. I actually thought Bobby Lashley, I got a big kick out of his little run. I thought, from the start you had the Edge and Orton brawl, and then it kind of petered away a little bit. It was like good wrestlers were coming in, but, there wasn't much going on. Not much to sink your teeth into until big beefy Carlito came out, eating the chicken and rice and broccoli. He's had a good couple of months preparing for this. Shouts. He looked tremendous as well. It's the era we're living in. You can't spit an apple in someone's face, which is a shame for him. Not the signature spot, but his stuff looked good as well. He entered a good performance. I think I'd be amazed if someone didn't try and sign him after that, just because he's massive. We're all body guys on this channel, we all know. But from there, it was kind of sluggish, apart from the odd Big E highlight. And then Lashley comes in. I thought him and Big E had a really good hoss fight. And then the Hurricane comes in and all this stuff. The Christian thing really blew my wig off, because when they did the Randy Orton gimmick last year, when he knocked him out and they had the match, it was set out in a way that was very much, okay, well, Christian can't take bumps. Yeah. That's why they've done this. There's no way. Serious retirement, concussion issues. No way. He can't do anything. Coming out of that, I was sure that we would never see that guy do anything physical in pro wrestling ever again. Done. That was it. It was a one-off. It was very careful. But he comes in this match, and thankfully Todd Grisham's not on the call. And he's running through signature spots. He's working double teams of Edge. He's taking bumps. And it's like that. I don't know if this was on purpose, right? And I'm going to say it wasn't, because it's WWE. But if they had somehow engineered the Randy Orton thing from a year ago to make you think that this guy is screwed, he can never take a bump again, and then done this 6 months, that's great. I mean, I don't know why am I doing this to myself? I know better than this. But it was very effective. The closing, final seconds of the match were tremendous. I was so glad there was no Bray Wyatt stuff. I don't know what this podcast audience feels in general of Bray Wyatt, but I would rather poke my eyeballs out with something very blunt than watch him messing with the best match of the year. So very happy that he didn't show up. Not the best Royal Rumble I've ever seen, but it got the job done in the end, and I'm happy for Edge, very much so.
And your thoughts quickly, Andy, on Goon?
It was the first time and probably the last time you will see Glenn Jacobs willingly wearing a mask for a long time. That's it.
I think now with Christian back and Daniel Bryan coming back in 2018, we've learned something, that when we all finally get back in the office together, we just need to have headbutting competitions. And then in 2031, we can tell people how we got over it and it's all fine now. Just shoot headbutt. Like, this elbow bumping. Let's just replace that with foreheads. Like, shoot foreheads to celebrate our return to the office one day. And then we'll just report back. We'll have the headbutting tournament part 2 10 years later when we've completely recovered. Because that's it. That's apparently how you get over these current. And then just wait. And all the problems just go away.
Just wait. But yeah, if it wasn't Daniel Bryan, I was more than happy for it to be Edge, particularly when 3 seconds before that, as you alluded to, Andy, I thought, oh my God, they'd sort of teased it as well a little bit in the video package where they're like, well, Randy Orton and then don't forget Stone Cold won 3 Royal Rumbles. And I was like, why have you put those two next to each other? Don't do that. But yes, Edge is on his way to WrestleMania, as is Bianca Belair. Do let us know your thoughts on everything, including the world title matches, of course, that we saw at the Royal Rumble in the comments or on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there. You can follow all 3 of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow Andy Murray on Twitter at
Andy H. Murray.